On behalf of EXIM Bank of Malaysia, I would like to thank Malaysia SME for giving us the opportunity to participate as the platinum sponsor for the program, which I believe that this is one of the most important programs for the nation, as in to give support to SMEs. We were talking just now out there. When we talk about SMEs, there are a few categories of SMEs. Mr. Kung gave me the idea of there are big SMEs, there are medium SMEs, there are micro SMEs. So insofar as we are concerned, when we talk about SMEs, it goes to all SMEs, big or small. We are very much delighted to be the platinum sponsor because of one of the reasons is the reason of being for EXIM Bank. For information, we are a government-owned bank. So meaning that the government is not short of any initiatives, any support of SMEs. Though we are not designed specifically for SMEs, but the range of business, the range of funding, the range of services that we cover, it goes to all aspects of Malaysian businesses, big or small. It's just that the limitation is we can only support SMEs or big corporates or whatever business establishments that has businesses crossing the borders of Malaysia. That's a bit of limitation that we have. But somehow, why we think that we should be involved with this? Because we know that there are SMEs that doesn't cross the border. Okay, though they don't cross the border, it is the intention that one day, when they are big enough, they will cross the border. Because we know that Malaysian market is not that big. With the 27 million population, the way is out. You know that under the new economic model, for the nation to progress into a developed nation by 2020, doubling the GDP income from 7,000 to 15,000 per capita US dollar, means that we need to do more. With the limited capacity, consumption capacity that Malaysia has to offer, everyone needs to go out. So that's why when you go out, you are bringing in two things with you, ladies and gentlemen. I need not give you this lecture because you are in the position of doing business. You know that when you go out, you need to have, number one is your core competence. You are good at what you're doing. You should be good at what you're doing, either manufacturing products or rendering services. But secondly, unless and until you tell me that you have the deepest pockets, you need funding. Because even, we have seen, even the likes of the big boys of Malaysia, I won't name them, the construction boys, when they go out, they still need funding. So meaning that you need two things, core competence and funding. So when we talk about funding, I'm just giving, sorry, this is not a lecture, this is not economics a lecture, but this is real example, real life example that we went through as EXIM Bank. We know that when you compete overseas, you need the funding. Chances of places that you can compete better or best. And these are not developed countries. If you were to go to the first world countries, your chances of thriving there or even surviving there is very minimal. That's why we have seen a lot that when Malaysians go out, they can compete better in less developed countries, whereby our products and services are looked at higher by the people over there. Okay, so but the problem here is when you go there, you want to raise funding over there, it's a bit limited, if not impossible. Number one, because you are relatively unknown to the banks there. Okay. Secondly, even if the banks are there, the financial system are very much less developed, meaning that it may lack liquidity to fund, especially foreigners. That is why the choice is for you to bring along your bank from Malaysia. Okay. So what choice do we have? In Malaysia, fortunately, the government has done it in such that our financial system is quite developed, on par with the first world countries. But issues are, these are commercial banks. Okay? When banks are driven commercially, they will calculate every risk and price it to the T. That's what they say. So meaning that your access to fund that can make you competitive will be very much limited. Secondly, not all banks are comfortable to go to the places that you go to. So there leaves a gap. There is an unserved niche whereby though the business that you do over there is viable, but you are not less able to do it. You are less able to do it because of that lack of funding. So in short, that is why EXIM exists. Okay? We are a niche bank that covers the gap left by commercial banks. Okay? So meaning that we are an alternative established by the government to cover this niche. And just for record, EXIM is never meant to compete with commercial banks, but we rather complement. That is why we are an alternative to you. Should you go to less developed countries, or in economic terms, this is what we call the non-traditional markets of Malaysia. Okay, so our specialty here is in covering viable business. We will lend you support, especially in less developed countries, or what we term as non-traditional market of Malaysians. Okay, that's what we do. And another thing, okay, I would like to add on. We know that in competing overseas, you need funding. That's one. But over and above of funding, you need risk management tools as well. As much as you are well, you can compete well within our shores. But when you cross the border, there are other risks. There are market risks. There are political risks. There are legal risks as well. Chances are these risks are the ones very much less thought of by our people. I'll give you a simple example. There are two categories of exporters insofar as we are concerned. One is you are here, manufacturing your goods here. What crosses the border are just your goods. Okay. Second one is you yourself crosses the border. You render services, or you brought along your company, establish a company over there, and doing some kind of manufacturing capacities or anything that is generating cash flow. So there are, insofar as we're concerned, there are two categories of exporters. For the first one, for those SMEs, usually the startups or the not so advanced, they have their operation over here, but what crosses the border are just the goods. So mind you that there are risks. So the risk for those manufacturers selling overseas is non-payment by your buyers. We have seen, even if you were to sell by LC, through LCs, some LCs that came from some banks in less developed countries are not even favored by your local banks. Okay? As much as you think that you are safe, but these LCs are as good as, sorry for the term, toilet papers. Okay? So meaning that if you are to protect yourselves against non-payment, even if you were to sell by LC, what more on open accounts, you can protect yourself against this non-payment by subscribing to an insurance, something called trade credit insurance. This is not very much known in Malaysia yet. Okay, I do not know for what reason, but we take the blame insofar as this thing is concerned, because EXIM, okay, we do underwrite, we do sell this kind of insurance. Okay, because if you remember, not so long ago, there was an institution called MECIB, M-E-C-I-B, Malaysian Export Credit Insurance Berhad. That was government owned, and since 2005, it was under EXIM Bank. We have taken over Mekip, and we are now rendering underwriting that risk. So meaning that payment risk can be mitigated. That's one, by you subscribing to the short-term insurance. Secondly, if you were to cross border yourselves, meaning that physically, set up base overseas, set up manufacturing capacities overseas, the host of risks that you're looking at are bigger. These are political risks. Chances are some places that you go, war can erupt, civil unrest can erupt. Even the countries can nationalize your assets. They can expropriate your profit. Or even the country's economy is in such that there are not enough dollars. You may be getting your profits, your revenues in terms of their currency, but unless and until you can turn that into dollar, and is again some tissue papers for you. Okay, so all these hosts of risks can be mitigated, and insofar as EXIM is concerned, we do that kind of service. Okay, there we have had a lot of discussions, even with some Chamber of Commerce. We know that the issue has been about the pricing. They were saying that maybe the premium that you have to pay is way too big. We take note of all that, and insofar as we are concerned, okay, there is a pricing to it, there is a pricing to the risk, but we are not overcharging. In simple terms, I used to tell people, let's not be too calculative about the premium, because the benefit that you get from this coverage is a lot more than the downside if the risks were to turn into reality. Okay, so basically, in short, this is marketing talk for EXIM Bank, but I'm taking every bit of opportunity when I have to introduce EXIM Bank, because we know that the level of awareness on EXIM Bank is rather low, but suffice to say that we are marketing EXIM Bank for one reason, as in to get people to know, to be aware that there is alternative, and this alternative is actually driven by the government for you.